or right when she got elected, very,
Yeah.
I guess, the March after.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a nice one.
Yeah.
We got summertime weather outside, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful today. Really beautiful.
Well, we have hit the 4 o'clock mark.
We have hit the 4 o'clock mark and we do have a quorum.
Okay. Sorry I got here so late. I wanted to chat too. Well, we welcome to the
Recording
January
in
20th,
progress.
the January 20th meeting of the Humboldt County Association of Governments Board of Directors. This meeting is held in accordance with Assembly Bill 361 and Humboldt County Association of Governments Board Resolution 21-24. And this meeting will be held virtually until further notice. There is a ribbon across the screen that you can see that will instruct you on how to make public comment at the appropriate time. And at this time, we will have a roll call.
Okay, Supervisor Bass. Mayor Jones,
Here,
Mayor Seaman, Councilmember Avis,
Present?
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
here,
Councilmember Johnson, Gordon Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember West, Councilmember Mike Johnson,
Here.
PAC member Arroyo, and PAC member Allstrand.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our first order is adjournment of the HCOG board and reconvening as the Policy Advisory Committee. And our first order of business on that is the Humboldt County Association of Governments proclamation supporting the countywide traffic safety task force. And Executive Director Berks.
Yeah, Chair Johnson, I think there's a couple options here. I can do this proclamation now, but it was actually going to be Mayor Seaman that was presenting it. And she is not here yet. I know that she will be attending a little bit late. So I'm happy to present it now, or we can move it to later in the agenda so that Mayor Seaman can give the presentation.
Do we have a quorum for this group?
We do.
Okay. I think isn't it a larger quorum than it is for the board?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
For the group that's now in session, we adjourned the board and we have a new group. Is its membership larger than the board?
It is. There are 2 PAC members. One is from
Okay.
Humboldt Transit Authority and the other from Caltrans.
Okay, great. They're both here. Good. Thanks.
We can move it down the agenda so that she can be present for the proclamation.
Thank you.
All right. And at that point, we do get to the public comment period for items not on the agenda. And do we have any non-agendized items? Non-agendized public comment?
I
Here.
don't see any hands raised for this.
Okay. And with that, we will go to the consent calendar. We'll leave it open for a moment while we do the consent calendar. Check again at the end there. So we have 5 items on the consent calendar. Does anybody wish to pull anything?
I don't wish to pull anything, but I want it noted on the agenda that my town was listed as blue, and we are Blue Lake on item E. So just that. Other than that, I would move for the approval of the consent calendar.
Second by Councilmember Johnson.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the consent calendar. Can we get a roll call?
Mayor Jones,
Yes,
Councilmember Avis,
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
aye.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West, Chair Mike Johnson,
Yes.
and PAC member Allstrand.
Yes.
Virginia Bass is here now, Debbie.
Oh, thank you.
And I
Mayor
say
Bass?
yes too on the consent calendar if anyone is interested.
Thank you. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Did we receive any other public comment?
I have not received any public comment.
Okay, well, we will close public comment and move to PAC action items. First item being the Regional Transportation Plan update and certify the environmental impact report and adopt the Regional Transportation Plan VROOM 22 to 42. We have a staff report. Una, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, board members. Happy New Year. Welcome back after the December break, and also welcome to new board members. And I'll probably forget to later, so I'll sneak in and thank you very much and farewell, Virginia Bass. It has been a pleasure all these years, and specifically this past HCOG tenure of yours, which I remember you from the tenure previous and really appreciate your work for the community. And looking forward to implementing the Regional Transportation Plan for the next 20 years as you all continue your service in any form or function. So what I would like to do is first give a quick presentation to get you grounded back in the kind of 20-year long-range feeling of the Regional Transportation Plan, and then I will get to more of the details of the staff report, which hone in on what exactly is different from what you have seen since November. And as a reminder, we have been bringing chapters one by one or by two to this board and committees. I would say for almost a year definitely when we started at least the outlines and everything. But I'm going to start with giving the broader story of what is it in, oops, went too far. Okay. There. What is it that you are being asked to consider to adopt today? So the Regional Transportation Plan, we would next update this in 4 years, but it is a 20-year plan. And the overall goal of the RTP and the overall objectives have not changed from the last update. And I believe there's only maybe a word or two different from the update before that. So our goal is for Humboldt County to have a carbon neutral, so carbon neutral are two new words in this, multimodal transportation system that is comprehensive, safe, sustainable, and equitable so that people in the region can travel and move goods by the modes that best suit the individual or business or industry and society at large. The overall objective of this long-range plan is to program all transportation funds based on multimodal transportation goals and objectives and needs and priorities as established in the Regional Transportation Plan. Now, we have had 6 priority objectives. These are from the existing plan with the blue showing you the new words that we have added for the proposed VROOM 2020-2042. So we're following these same priority objectives, and they are defined in the RTP. And now I'm going to go through the 12 chapters that we have in the RTP. So this introduction is
Una, I hate to interrupt you, but now Susan Seaman can't get in either, and I can't remember. I'm afraid to try to tell her how to find the link. So Debbie, can you send Susan the link, please, because she wants to join us.
Okay, thank you.
Somehow she and I lost it. I don't know. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
I apologize.
No apology needed. We want Susan in too. So the introduction lays out kind of what our emphases articulated now. The big picture stuff that we want our regional transportation system to help and not hinder to the extent possible. So addressing climate change, addressing having adequate housing and vibrant neighborhoods, addressing safety and health, and addressing equity. So our second chapter, Renewing Our Communities, is a brand new chapter, and it is basically fleshing out a little bit of the new emphasis that we want to articulate more and be more proactive. And so this is just a screenshot of the first page of that. And one new thing in this chapter, Renewing Our Communities, is we summarize a little bit what we heard from the community when we went out and did all of our public outreach and engagement. And in addition to having a survey online and in paper, we asked a question similar to this, or we had an activity similar to this in many pop-up events that we did around the county. So the question was, how do you think countywide transportation funding should be prioritized? And then the pop-up events we had buckets, and we gave people money, and they got to choose how they would spend their budget of money in the different buckets. So this is a little hard to read. So the next slide shows you how this survey came out for the people who took it. And we had around 340, I think, respondents. And what I note from this is, so this shows people who voted this as the number one priority, people who voted for the number two, etc. The highest scores in either people's first choice or second choice was build and improve sidewalks, bike lanes, pedestrian scaled lighting, and traffic calming. And that total score was 4.77. The second highest score, 4.25, were people telling us that they would put funds for making it easier and more convenient to use public transportation. And then the third highest at 4.10, was resurface, repair, and improve roads and bridges. But I will also note that this, of course, could be different if maybe a different sector of the county, if we had a lot more people in places to outreach. What I'm trying to say is where we have very low density people, we probably got a smaller sample of that population, and maybe they would have voted differently. But as just kind of a touchstone, this is also what we heard from the community public outreach meeting we had and other comments we've gotten directly on the drafts. So the other thing in the Renewing Our Communities that is brand new now is a section on transportation equity. We didn't have this in VROOM before, so now we talk a little bit about race-based discrimination in U.S. transportation history, and then I have included the statement of commitment to fighting racial injustice and equity, which the board approved before the RTP update and directed staff that the RTP update would be the place to put that statement of commitment. And the other big new thing in the Renewing Our Communities is this safe and sustainable transportation targets. And these are the 10 performance measures or regional targets. So these are the things that started out focusing as greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. And as we worked with the ad hoc committee and heard from the community, we realized there were other things that we wanted to have targets for, including safety and education. So thus we renamed them the Safe and Sustainable Transportation Targets. So that is brand new to VROOM and in the the Renewing Our Communities chapter. We also have Chapter 3, which is the Global Climate Crisis, which we have had before. It is not required by the state, but we do have it. Two new things we have in there is now we discuss clean cars and clean fleets or zero emission vehicles. And we also have added two new projects to the action plan, one to help the zero emission vehicle infrastructure and two to promote electric bikes. Then we have a tribal transportation element, which we have had, I think this is the third cycle we've had it, also not required, but we're very happy and proud and appreciative to have this in there and have the tribes also interested in putting their planning endeavors in here. What's new in here is that now we actually have a transportation goal articulated, whereas the last one was a little simpler in that our goal was just to support the North Coast Tribal Transportation Commission, but now we have a more RTP articulated goal and our goal would be that tribal communities have safe and efficient mobility options, they benefit from equitable access to transportation resources, and have strong interjurisdictional partnerships for advocating and solving transportation issues of tribal communities. And then we've also added 3 new policies: support NCTTC's mission, support removing sovereign waiver, and redress discriminatory names. That would mostly be in street names and other transportation related names. We have an emergency transportation element. Again, this is not required, and we've had it for at least 2 cycles. Nothing new there to report. Brand new land use transportation element to just articulate the way that these two must go hand in hand if we really want to make the most of both of them and also address climate change. 2 new things in there, not 2 new things. 2 things in here is that we do a little summary of how past and present land use patterns or what we have to deal with transportation, and we also describe the regional housing needs allocation. The land use transportation element has its own goal to grow communities equitably and efficiently, to create safe, sustainable access to places and opportunities while conserving or utilizing land respectfully so that future generations can enjoy optimal land uses and value. All our communities benefit from having quality transportation choices for getting to jobs, services, and home. And then we have 10 policies in there, which I've noted just the titles here. 4 of them are lifted from the California Transportation Plan, so it's statewide goals also that we are in alignment with. And then we have 2 projects, both HCOG responsibilities. One is to devise some equity evaluation criteria. So this would be a full public process and also definitely vetted through our committees and getting input and feedback from the committees before being brought to the board. And then also working on charging infrastructure. And this is put in this for purposes of working with land use authorities, jurisdictions who actually have authority for land use. Then we have the Complete Streets and Connected Communities chapter. The new thing there is that not just level of service, now we also talk about vehicle miles traveled. And we also have changed the way that projects used to be lightly termed prioritized. So the jurisdictions, when they send in their projects for complete streets, they just self-report which of the objectives is the project likely to meet. And you'll see in the bottom of this slide, what they used to rate were 1 for 1 the 6 major objectives that the RTP has. Well, now we are aligning this more with the safe and sustainable transportation targets. So the new boxes that they will be checking off, or that they have checked off in this draft, is mode shift, lowering VMT, access to essential destinations, vision 0, and then fix it first. And the fix it first was added by approval of the board in November, and we will discuss this prioritization more at under this agenda item. There's one project for HCOG now, and we are going to be starting this off as soon as possible to get a low traffic stress and connectivity analysis of bike and pedestrian network. First, we will concentrate on the greater Humboldt Bay area, and then we will try to have an analysis such as this for the whole county by 2026. And of the objectives that this would meet, we checked off that this will help achieve our mode shift targets. We have a commuter trails element, which is also optional. Not even optional, we put it in, we're not required to, but they're very important to us. So we've had this element in the RTP for definitely last cycle, maybe the one before it. And the one thing of content that has been added is that we are talking about the Great Redwood Trail. So we summarized that. A public transportation element, which is required. Nothing really new in that one. An aviation element, which is required. And the new thing we've put in that is that under discussing climate change and sea level rise, which we did have before, but now we expanded it in responding to some public comments to talk about the climate impact of air travel. And that is highlighted in the matrix in your staff report that I added language to introduce to the reader like ways to mitigate if you are going to do air travel. And then on an institutional level, ways that institutions or agencies can maybe have criteria for when they decide which trips are worthwhile taking airplane rides for and which maybe you could do alternative things. Goods movement element, this is the element to required to address moving freight. And I don't think, oh yes, we have broadband paragraph on broadband connectivity, but that's really the only big change in that one. And then the financial element, this is also what we will discuss further. It is tied to the complete streets table thing I alluded to, and it is doing a funding consistency analysis, which I'll wait till I get to the staff report to delve into the more details of that. And then I think I have just 2 more slides. We have a new map, the disadvantaged communities, which the board has seen before and approved the conditions for which we are now saying this is how we're going to describe, not officially, but as a first cut, which are the disadvantaged communities that we would want to prioritize getting projects to for safety and equity. And then here are all the appendices we have. Just to note that the addendum number 2 to the final EIR is in the appendix, and all the public and agency written comment is in there. And now Caltrans extensive project lists are now in the appendix instead of the complete streets chapter. And that is what the 20-year plan is in a nutshell. So I'd be happy to take a break here or any other direction from the chair.
Does anyone have a question or a comment for Una? I know that's a mouthful there. That's just the update.
That's just the update.
And I have looked at portions of the draft, and there's a lot of information in there, and you've done a pretty good job of summarizing it, I think.
Thank you.
We thank you for that. But anybody else have a question or a comment for Una before we move on and see how long she can talk before she passes out? Okay, looks like you're up.
Okay, great. So I think the thing that is worthwhile to refresh everyone about is based on the direction we last got at the November meeting, and I will pull up the staff report because there was some multi-sentence drafts that was approved, and then we got further recommendations from the TAC. So this would be, I will mention first, not to gloss over this. So the addendum number 2 to the final environmental impact report in November, the board's direction was agreeable to certifying the addendum number 2, and we were going to just wait to do it at the same meeting. So there were no changes, except as I've said in here, I had to change a reference to a table, but this would be the same document and same conclusion that there are no more significant impacts than there were at the time the original EIR was certified. And again, this is the same document that the board agreed in concept in November that the board would certify and approve. So then if you all who were there will recall, in October and continuing to November, some board members, PAC members, and some commenters from the public were asking for a little bit more of a defined method in the RTP about how we include projects in the RTP, with the goal of having them align more consistently with meeting the targets and the goals that we have, particularly in the safe and sustainable transportation targets. So then the language that we had, that Executive Director Berks came up with. So here at the November board meeting, to address public comments and board direction in October, staff proposed the following language, which the board then approved. So then this went into a final draft that then we presented first at the TAC meeting. So it was to have a funding consistency tool, which the, HCOG shall develop a tool or process to evaluate projects that qualify for discretionary non-formula funding available through HCOG, such as the State Transportation Improvement Program. The tool or process is intended to aid in prioritizing projects that provide the most benefit in achieving the priorities set forth in the Regional Transportation Plan and Safe and Sustainable Transportation Targets. So that was added in the financial element. The TAC then recommended revised language for this action item, and the main concern was that fix-it first and rehabilitation and road improvement projects would not it might be that they weren't shown as priorities in the RTP, but the case might be that it would in fact be the jurisdiction's priority. So the TAC asked the staff to go back to the drawing board, and this is what the next draft then came, that staff's alternate language is a funding consistency analysis. So the draft now reads, HCOG staff will prepare a report for review by the TAC and board on the history of projects funded with HCOG discretionary funding sources and the project benefits achieved in relation to RTP priorities, including Fix It First and the Safe and Sustainable Transportation Targets. HCOG will track annually the benefits benefits of the projects in relation to our RTP priorities. Based on the results of this tracking, staff will work with the TAC and board to explore if and how a ratings program for projects would be beneficial in meeting RTP priorities. So if the board prefers this to the other one, or not to a new one if directed to do so, then this is an action item under HCOG's responsibility listed in the financial element. So I would say that's the big discussion item, and the rest of the changes that are shown in the matrix in the staff report, I think they're much more straightforward. So I will kick it back to the chair, and I'm here, of course, for discussion and questions, as well as Director Berks, who prepared that language.
Okay, thank you. Is there any PAC member comments, questions at this time? Councilmember Avis.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the summary. This is great. I had one question looking at Appendix C, which is I guess the updated EIR. On page 9, under tribal transportation, there is reference to the NCTTC, but there is nowhere where it's actually spelled out as North Coast Tribal Transportation Council, simply the initials. I wonder if that could be added in easily enough. For people
Yes,
who may not be
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I have one.
Looks like Susan has one.
Oh, Mayor Seaman.
I was just wondering, I'm trying to go through all of these links on the thing, but could you just show that language again so I can read it some more? And then you can ask your question. I just wanted to read it again. Thanks, Chairman.
And Mayor Seaman, is that the language, the new language for the action in the
Exactly.
financial element? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's see. Funding consistency analysis, is that legible? Looks like
I was going to say, yes, bring it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're
And then,
welcome.
Chairman, you can ask, Mr. Chairman, you can
Oops,
ask the question.
sorry.
Okay, I was just going to make a comment on the local jurisdictions that put in what looks like a rehabilitation project. Many times that is done and is prioritized because it could be the difference between making a $200,000 rehabilitation or repair and a $600,000 reconstruction. And that's how those things get prioritized. And everybody uses the roads, transit, zero emission vehicles, internal combustion vehicles, and we need to keep them in good repair so that they can be transited without a problem. And it's especially rural roads out in low density housing where you're talking 20-acre parcels and distance between access points. And so what may look like a frivolous expense or non-targeted expense could save a 30-minute trip making another way to access your house when a road fails in a rural area. Those are just a couple of things I wanted to bring up. So thank you. And any other question? Mayor Seaman, I don't know if your hand's still up or new.
No, so I was just reading through this again and remembering what we were talking about before and looking at this changed language. It looks like it's almost just kicking the can a little bit down the road, but not 20 years to do a little bit more research on this before we adopt the ratings program, but it doesn't have kicking that out altogether.
Yeah, if I can address that through the chair, yes, it does, in a sense, buy us a little more time. I think, what we heard clearly from the TAC was, one, with the language that was proposed before, I wrote in there HCOG will, and in my mind, that meant the board, the TAC, staff, everybody working together. They read that and thought that that was really just staff in the back room prioritizing their projects and deciding what was worthy. That was never the intent. I also think they brought up a good point of where we, sort of just developing a tool to solve a problem that we don't necessarily know we have. And so that's where we came up with, let's really see what benefits we have been having, have all of our discretionary funding sources gone to fix it first projects really, exponentially higher than it should be, or has it been pretty even? And would that be valuable to know as we move forward to develop a tool? So I think that it keeps the tool on the table. It also gives us a little more wiggle room than the shall that was in the previous version to be more nimble about how we want to approach this. And I think with the tracking, I feel really good that we can present good information and say, hey, are we getting to where we want to be? And decide, what we need to do about it. Maybe it's something as simple as, let's make sure the majority of our funding goes towards mode shift or something like that. It doesn't need, I don't want it to be so complicated that we're just creating more red tape. And then ultimately, seeing recommendations that are exceptions to this tool we painstakingly create. So, I want it to be really suitable for what we're trying to accomplish. And I also want the TAC to have some assurance that we're not scrapping all the good work that they've done, over the years here at HCOG. They do work really collaboratively when it comes to putting projects forward, with this year doing the first regional transportation improvement program with them that I've ever done. They really made sure that it was shared equitably and heard everybody out on projects and made sure every jurisdiction, got at least partial funding for what they were looking for. So I think, we don't want to also, sort of discourage that type of collaboration and the good effort that they put in together to come up with solutions for the region. So that's how we landed on this language. And I do think it still leaves the door open to make sure that nexus is there.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that it doesn't look like it's taking it off the table at all. At first, when I started reading it, I was like, oh, well, this is just not that. And then I was like, oh, it is.
It's still there. Any other comments, questions? Any public comment?
We do have public comment.
Okay.
Just if I could interject with just some quick logistics, because this is a webinar and people are interested in, being able to, to present and show their face. We're going to promote folks so that you can see them while they're presenting. We can't unpromote them after they're done because it will eject them from the meeting entirely. So for those of you who would like to speak, please, unmute yourself and once you're promoted and speak for your time. And then please turn your camera off for and your microphone off for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Yes.
So we have the first speaker, who is Lucy.
I think you're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, here I go. Thank you so much for letting me speak directly to you through Zoom. I really appreciate that. Lucy Kosteva is my name. I'm speaking about the Trinidad Rancherias project, which is in your vroom aspect of the RTP. I'm a longtime West Haven resident, former senior transportation engineer at Caltrans, now retired after 30 years. In looking into how my own community of West Haven got included in this project, it became apparent that the entire purpose and need of the project fails to align with either historical accuracy or ground truth. The approved purpose and need was developed by a consultant specifically hired to deliver an interchange. It was not reviewed by anyone for truth or accuracy, not by Caltrans, who exempted themselves from both validation and liability, not by the tribe. They are very happy having an interchange, understandably let their professional consultant drive the project, and not by your own TAC, who, although recommending tax dollar allocations, has not appeared to look at the project's content. The primary reason stated for the project in the approved documents is to a reliable route to the Rancheria, as Scenic Drive is failing. I ask you each to consult Google Earth, where you will see that unlike Scenic Drive to the south, which is failing along the coastal bluffs, Scenic Drive of the Rancheria to the north is in relatively good shape as it veers inland, buffered from the adverse effects of the ocean by many expensive bluff homes. The project's primary justification is disputed by Google Earth. The second reason stated is to reconnect tribal lands severed by 1962 freeway construction. Caltrans records show 1 acre was severed. It was never used or developed and ultimately abandoned in 1966. The 8 acres where tribal members currently reside on the east of 101 is non-contiguous to original tribal lands and was purchased in the late 80s, 25 years after the freeway was constructed. The secondary justification is disputed by Caltrans records. In addition, Caltrans approval to allow an exception to standard interchange spacing is based on the same 2 disputed justifications. The consistent false justification in the numerous project documents, all prepared by the same consultant, important point, reads very smoothly for approving officials at remote desks, but they are challenged by the truth of public records. I ask the HCOG board today to strike a balance in meeting your equity goals, possibly use the newly introduced by UNA equity evaluation criteria, and see to it that the purpose and need of the project is validated, and as deemed appropriate to provide for and encourage subsequent modifications to both the needs statement and the resultant alternatives. I thank you for your time, and I do sincerely appreciate everyone's work in our society. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a second speaker who wanted to speak, and that was Colin Fisk.
Yes.
Good afternoon. This is Colin Fisk with the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. You all, I think, are familiar with us, but we have more than 600 members and supporters, mostly here in Humboldt County. And I first want to reiterate my thanks to HCOG staff for their work on the RTP update, and to say that I think the plan is evolving in a very positive direction, particularly with the new orientation around transportation equity and the safe and sustainable transportation targets. With that said, we keep running into this issue of actually aligning projects in the RTP with those targets. And as you know, CRTP supports assessing projects for their alignment prior to including them in the RTP to ensure that what we're doing is actually in line with the plan that we adopt. In large part of resistance from the TAC, however, this board in previous meetings elected not to immediately establish that kind of test, but you did direct staff to develop a tool, as Una reviewed, to rank and prioritize projects based on their alignment with the targets. Now, however, the TAC has objected even to that, and instead you have before you a recommendation to essentially monitor how projects do or do not help in achieving the targets. I have a lot of respect for the members of the TAC. They're asked to do a lot of essential work without enough resources. They've worked out a way over the years to divvy up funding amongst themselves in a collegial way, and that's admirable. And now they want to do that without any constraints put on it. And that last part, I think, is the problem. We're in a crisis situation. We're facing both a road safety crisis and a climate crisis. And with this recommendation, the TAC is essentially objecting to prioritizing safety projects and emission reducing projects because they might want to prioritize another kind of project. And that's not a good enough reason, in my opinion. We need to prioritize safety and climate mitigation projects. And if a jurisdiction wants to have a project pushed to the top of the funding list, such as road maintenance, as the chair was describing earlier, and if it isn't something that will improve safety or reduce emissions, generally safety or emissions reducing elements can be added. With most projects, that's fairly straightforward. So, and as I said, there's an urgent need to do that. So I would strongly urge you to reject this latest recommendation and instead adopt the language that you approved in November about developing a funding consistency tool or something similar to that. It doesn't go as far, as I said earlier, as I think we should, but it's much better than just standing by. I really think our climate and, of course, our friends and neighbors who are tragically dying on the streets every year just can't afford to have us kick the can down the road any further and continue with business as usual. Thanks.
Thank you.
We have one more caller with the number, your last four numbers, 8554. You can speak. Hello.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Gurin, and I wanted to thank you, Una, for your presentation, and thanks to all of you for your great work on the RTP update. I wanted to express my support for the safe and sustainable targets established in the RTP. I believe, like Colin, I believe these targets need to be more than words on paper. And so I'm here to express my support for the staff recommendation to develop a prioritization tool for discretionary funding to ensure that projects are actually aligned with the safe and sustainable targets. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I don't have any other hands raised for public comment.
Debbie, I think Jerome's hand is raised.
I see that.
I don't see, okay, I can't see it on my end.
Yes, Jerome.
Here, my name is Jerome Cariazzi, speaking as member of the public. I've had the privilege of participating in commenting on the safe and sustainable priorities that were included here, as well as working as a consultant on the climate action plan that's being developed for the county. And I wanted to express my support for this RTP update. I think it is fantastic. I do want to echo the recommendations of Katie and Colin as well. In my experience, funding criteria play a significant role in encouraging entities to enact what our planning priorities are. And so to the extent that a tool or some method can be developed to further give weight to these priorities that have been included in the RTP, I think would be extremely valuable. That said, I definitely appreciate the effort in trying to balance this with making sure that rehabilitation and fix it first projects get through. And lastly, I do have a quick question I'm hoping staff could answer or clarify. Will all projects complete that complete streets checklist when submitted? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Johnson, we do have another caller.
Okay.
With the last four numbers, 2466. With the last four numbers, 2466, you need to unmute your phone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, this is Wendy Ring. Is it my turn?
Yes.
great. Yeah, thank you so much for the chance to express my thoughts. I did participate in the ad hoc committee that developed the safe and sustainable transportation targets, and I am a medical and public health professional, so I have, in addition to my concern about climate as everyone else, I have very strong feelings about safety and the health benefits of physical activity, which are much needed here in Humboldt County, given our epidemic of chronic disease related to physical inactivity. And I just wanted to echo Colin and Katie and say that, it's a great document, but if we want to turn that dream into reality, we have to put our money where our mouth is. And we are in a climate crisis, and we have limited resources here, and we may have to make some hard choices. And I think that those choices should be made using a tool which prioritizes those safe and sustainable transportation targets and equity, and that allocates dollars and effort according to what we say our priorities are. So thank you very much for being able to throw in my 2 cents.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your participation earlier in the update. Any others?
I don't see any other public comments.
Okay. Is there any other comments for Una or Beth and before, or does anyone have a motion?
Through the chair, just while you're still kind of in pre-discussion, I can answer Mr. Kiriazi's question about, do all projects get rated the way they are in the complete streets table? They do not. In all the elements that we have that are not required by the RTP, we haven't found a consistent way to put those in. So they're a little bit like apples and oranges. So right now, the way the RTP is set up, only the complete streets projects do the self-reporting rating.
Okay, thank you. So with that, if we don't have any more discussion, we will entertain a motion or, Mayor Seaman.
So I was just wondering, with this new wording from the TAC, could we put, because I really do understand, and I'm so concerned about pedestrian safety and multimodal. And I recognize that it's very easy to get away from that for the projects like Fix It First, because there's so many things that need to be fixed first. It's just really easy. Is there a time limit that we could put on the, we'll look at it for the next 2 years, but by year 2, there will be a full, complete rundown that you have to do, and you have to be able to match it to the RTP at that point, so that we could get the good information, make really good criteria, but then also really say that there is a deadline, and that deadline we're going to commit to it. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, if I can answer that, I think absolutely. I think having a time frame is appropriate, and I think it would be good for us as staff too to kind of hear that direction and know that that's something we need to get right to work on. And I think we'll be seeing that that report will come out really soon. Kind of the historic achievements or focus areas of our discretionary funding. I think we can work on getting that out in the next few months. It is a challenge. Some of the things that happen with our discretionary funding is planning phases get funded. So, for example, in our current regional transportation Transportation Improvement Program. Fortuna has a project for a roundabout. It involves mode shift and pedestrian safety, but it's just the planning phase. Is that more important than a construction phase? So it is going to be a challenge just to even report it out and make sure we're feeling like we have all the information in front of us about the impacts our projects are having and the outcomes they're trying to achieve, because they're not all quite at the same stage. But we will do our best. It will also be a little bit challenging because the safe and sustainable transportation targets are new. And if we're going to look at kind of like the history of what HCOG's been doing, we didn't have those targets in place when other projects were coming forward. So I think we can lay it all out and just kind of say, here's what we know and here's what we've been funding. And then I think, kind of immediately start work with the TAC to kind of warm them up to this tool. I think it doesn't need to be as scary as they're thinking. And I think we do need to keep it pretty nimble, because it's hard to think of all the different scenarios and ways, what happens when we add the equity criteria over this. And, it's kind of like think of like using JS layers, right? We have one constraint over one constraint, and before you know it, we've really complicated things. So I think we want to work closely with the TAC and start brainstorming on that of what steps really are viable and productive to take. And I think we can do that really soon. I think the other benefit of doing it really soon is that with some of the money that will be coming from the new federal infrastructure law, that will come, ideally with some extra discretionary funding for HCOG. And so, having a tool in place as we're faced with, what is hopefully an influx of funding would be really valuable. So I think it is really time sensitive to not wait a long time before we come up with that. So I think, even 1 year, 2 years maximum would be ideal for us to report back and get a tool in place.
Excellent. Our projects take so long to do, and I know funding is so long. I didn't know what a reasonable amount of time was. I figured if we were waiting 2 years, that's 1/10 of the length of this plan, and that there'd be chances for things to get fully funded, at least, if nothing else. But okay.
I would also say that a lot of times what appears as a rehabilitation project or something such as that, at the same time that is being done, that is when there's sidewalks coming in, enhanced crosswalks, curb cuts for ADA transition, and a number of things, a bike lane, if possible, on top of curb gutter and sidewalk. And sometimes the concrete improvements end up costing more than what appears as the asphalt improvements. And these things are always looked at because you don't want to go in and put a lot of money in a roadway and then go back and dig portions of it back up again. And at the same time, you can't always put in the concrete improvements because you've got to match the grade for the roadway. So the best way is you put it all in together at the same time. And so what it says is a rehabilitation project very likely has some of these sustainable mode shift, sometimes VMT, because you have an enhanced transit access, different things, pedestrian safety aspects to it. All of those things were addressed. So,
and my understanding of the purpose of doing it in the first place is so it gives them an opportunity to say, when we're doing this, fix it first. These are some other things that we're going to do in addition that meet our goals, versus just saying we're going to pave the street. So,
yes, and anymore, even the striping is a safety aspect. I just found out that the size of the median striping has gone up again. So it's kind of another aspect of safety. So any other comments or questions, ideas? Can we get a motion and move forward with this, or a recommendation to table it?
I'll go ahead and make a motion and see where it goes.
Yes.
PAC will recommend to the board adoption of Resolution 22-03, certifying Addendum 2 to the final EIR, and Resolution 22-04, finalizing the RTP update. Room 2022 through 2040.
I would second motion. Oh, sorry. I would second that motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Avis,
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Hey.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
PAC member Allstrand,
Yes.
and Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And thank you. And thank you, Una, for your work on that and trying to help simplify and convey information for a very complicated problem.
You are welcome. Thank you very much.
And with that, we will move to item B, partner with Humboldt Transit Authority in applying for a transit and intercity rail capital program grant.
Thank you. I'll give the staff report on this one. Actually, this would have been on consent, but the resolution includes references to a very newly adopted RTP. So I wanted to make sure it followed that item. And so this is for HCOG to partner with Humboldt Transit Authority. We are helping them with a grant application that involves building an intermodal transit center. This would go in the parking lot that's behind the Lost Coast Brewery. They have an MOU with the city of Eureka to develop the site for this purpose. The Intermodal Transit Center would include mixed use. So it would be a transit center that includes, all forms, bike share, different transit, the Amtrak could park there, all the different bus lines can meet there. But then on the upper stories, there would be housing uses, and they envision student housing and workforce housing, and as well as other facilities, maybe some commercial retail type facilities, even things like a childcare center has been thrown around. But really the focus for Humboldt Transit Authority is the base of it, which is that intermodal transit center. In addition, the grant would allow for the purchase of, I believe it's 10 hydrogen buses that would serve our rural areas. Hydrogen buses will work for our rural areas. They will, the battery electric will not get all the way out like to Willow Creek, for example. So we need those hydrogen buses to serve the rural areas, and also to serve routes that go, for example, from Eureka to Ukiah. So to get us out of the county as well. And then there would also be an aspect, among other things, to have a hydrogen fueling station located at Humboldt Transit Authority's maintenance yard. And this would be for fueling for the hydrogen buses they plan to purchase, but it would also have what they call over the fence fueling, I believe is what they call it. And this allows for others to purchase the hydrogen fuel from HTA's maintenance yard. So for example, if Caltrans or others wanted to convert their fleets to hydrogen, they would be able to use the hydrogen fueling center. So, motor pools for all the cities, anybody who's going to switch to hydrogen would be able to buy the fuel. And that also helps with the economy of scale. Hydrogen is quite expensive. The more users we can get for it, the lower the cost will become. So there's a few other aspects to the grant, but I think that's the highlights. The resolution is partly to show support for the project, for HCOG to show support, but also to have us as a partner agency. And so we would be written into the grant to help with outreach primarily, and also grant management. And that would also come with funding for us. So if we needed to, pay for staff time for those purposes, we would have the funding through the grant to do that. So staff is recommending approval of this. We are excited to partner with HTA and, looking forward to a successful project. And, we've worked on sort of iterations of this in the past with HTA. We did that RAISE grant where we were not successful. But, I think it just shows that they're very devoted to getting this intermodal transit center and converting their fleet to hydrogen. So, we will keep trying until we are successful. And I think with a lot of the funding coming down, this is right in line with a lot of the federal initiatives. So, we're hopeful that very soon we'll see this project go through. So I'll conclude my staff report there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Anybody have a question or comment for Director Berks on this?
Mike, this is Gordon Johnson. And Beth, I was wondering what the dollar value of the grant request would be.
Yeah, so it's quite high. They're actually looking, I believe it's close to $30 million for this type of, for what I've just described. There would be, that does not include the portion that's the housing development. That would be separately funded with different sources. But $30 million for the transit center and the hydrogen buses and the fueling station.
Thank you.
Any other PAC members before we enter into public comment? I don't see, I believe we have one public comment right now, Colin Fisk.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to, first of all, express my strong support for this proposal and hope that HCOG will go ahead and partner with HTA and hope that the grant is successful. The one caveat that I'll mention, which I always mention, is that I hope that we will prioritize green hydrogen because, for those who aren't familiar, currently most of the hydrogen available is derived from natural gas. And so if we want to be getting away from that, we want to ensure that we're getting green hydrogen, which is derived from water using renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
I haven't received any other public comment.
Is there any other questions or comments from the PAC? And if not, we will entertain a motion. Yes, Mayor Jones.
Well, I'll just put this together with my motion, but it sounds like a very exciting project. I'm especially happy to hear about housing possibly going above the project because that's a need that we have in the state of California and in Humboldt County. So having said that, I move that the Policy Advisory Committee recommend that the board adopt Resolution 22-05 approving HCOG to partner with the Humboldt Transit Authority in applying for a transit and intercity rail capital program grant and find that the project would further Vroom 2022 to 2042 policies adopted for the purpose of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Seaman?
Yes.
Councilmember Avis?
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar?
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson? Councilmember West?
Yes.
PAC member Allstrand?
Yes.
And Chair Mike Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. And I think this would be an opportune time for the proclamation.
You guys waited for me. That's so nice.
Beth is looking things up right now, frantically.
I know that's what I was doing too. I was looking for the.
I just want to say while we're waiting that as a member of this traffic safety task force, I'm very happy to see so many signs going up around the towns, including my own little town of Blue Lake. It looks like it's backwards. I don't know how it shows up on Zoom, but anyway, and bumper stickers are available. So it looks like it's something that's really catching on, and the citizens seem to be embracing it. So that's a really positive thing.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm very excited. Before I read the proclamation, I'll just say too that we had $1,000 donated for making PSAs. So as a countywide traffic safety task force focused on increasing driver and pedestrian safety throughout the region. And whereas Humboldt County ranks #1 out of 58 counties in 2018 for traffic collisions involving a pedestrian, has fatal collision rates double the national average and nearly triple those of California. And whereas while effective transportation safety policies include a multifaceted approach, including infrastructure development and improvements, enforcement of the laws, and education, safe streets also rely on the personal responsibility and behavior of those who use them. And whereas we recognize that drivers have an inherent responsibility to maintain a culture of respect and courtesy, avoid causing harm, and protect the community's most vulnerable residents. And whereas Humboldt County residents pride themselves on being values-driven, innovative, and proactive problem solvers, and responsive and responsible protectors of community residents and visitors. And whereas national statistics and local experience indicate that low-income people, people of color, older people, and people with disabilities are more likely to be killed while walking or biking, and we are committed to addressing those tragic inequities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Humboldt County Association of Governments recognizes that safely navigating our streets and sidewalks is a cooperative activity, and that the traffic collisions are not inevitable, and therefore adopts the Vision Zero goal to work towards eliminating all traffic fatalities and severe injuries while increasing safe, health, equitable mobility for all. I think it's supposed to be healthy, equitable mobility for all. And that's it.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Berks, I believe we need a motion to adopt that and to move forward.
Yes.
I'll
make that motion. Bass.
Do we have second?
I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Avis,
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
PAC Member Allstrand,
Yes.
and Chair Mike Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And thank you all. And our next item is a informational report from Executive Director Berks with year 2021 highlights.
Yeah, let me share my screen here. Okay. Oh, you guys are seeing 2021 highlights here? Looks good. Okay, great. Well, also in your board packet you received my very first attempt at a newsletter type assembling of what does HCOG do, and I've really been trying as the year ended, and I've been at HCOG for a year, to distill it down in a really simple way. So kind of I think of it like an elevator pitch or an elevator speech. Like if somebody asked me, what do you do at HCOG and what does HCOG do? Just trying to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, keep it simple, and also frame it in a way that we can all realize just how much HCOG does over the course of a year and how important it is for keeping funds flowing through our community for transit and roads projects. And so, this presentation is meant to complement the handout. So let's get started. Maybe not. Here we go. All right, so this technically just happened moments ago, but I'm calling it a win for 2021. This is, of course, adoption of the room, and very glad to have been here for the whole year of this process. We had a great time getting out in the community, doing pop-ups. It looked different, of course, because of the pandemic, but we did, we were able throughout the summer to get out to a lot of farmers markets, and it was really fun to connect with people and get that feedback into the room. And so I'm grateful for that opportunity. We had a really successful public meeting that we incorporated into that process, and also just really clear direction for moving forward. So that is a huge win for 2021. Then there's also, we adopted the 2022 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. And we, for the first time in a couple of cycles, actually had money to program for local projects. As those of you who've been here a while know, of course, for many cycles, the biggest portion of our funding, if not all of it, was going to the Arcata Eureka Safety Corridor Indianola project. And although that still looms and we're still working on it, and perhaps it'll need a little more funding, we were able to program many projects that are important for our region. So as I mentioned before, the TAC did a great job of, divvying that up, and making sure that many jurisdictions benefited from the money that was available. And also, right after arriving, there was the adoption of the Eureka Broadway Multimodal Corridor Plan. And this plan, was adopted in early 2021. I think they worked on it for nearly 18 months prior to that. But I will say it's not a plan that's sitting on the shelf. This is a plan that is in action, and it's exciting to see the momentum this plan has created. Caltrans is actively working on studying the middle couplet. And in fact, for Bike Month in May, we are likely to see demonstration projects popping up. So they're going to do basically like a temporary buffered bike lane on the northbound side. We will see some temporary bulb outs for pedestrian safety. And that way Caltrans engineers can evaluate those improvements in real time and see how traffic is reacting to those and how they're interacting with the users. So it's really exciting to see that in addition to that, Caltrans's outreach process, they have the public involved in their project development team. So I get to go to the meetings. Many stakeholders are at those meetings. We kind of got to see the inner workings of how a project goes from that really concept stage at Caltrans to hopefully what will be implementation, which will, of course, take a while. But again, it's not sitting on the shelf. This plan really did just sort of catapult Broadway into the forefront of everything that is getting worked on actively now. So happy to do that. It also led to convening a bit of a working group. So we at HCOG convene a working group that includes the county, the city of Eureka, public works directors, and also Caltrans, just to talk about Broadway and really the whole 101 corridor through the greater Eureka area and make sure we're all in touch about all the different activities going on. So I think that this has really been a great starting point for a lot of good collaboration. We also adopted the Coordinated Public Transportation Plan. That was back in March. This really is kind of a sort of synopsis of all the public transportation that is available throughout Humboldt County. And it's a building block for funding that our transit agencies need. So it's important to have these updated. It was done by an outside entity, but glad that we have that on the books and it's helpful for our transit agencies. Of course, we adopted the overall work program, which we are already launching into a new one. So come next month, you'll see the next version. But this, of course, guides our work, sets our budget, and really helps us as staff know what we're going to be working on every day. Unmet transit needs. This is another yearly report that we do. And as soon as we finish one, it seems like we start the next one. But it is our way to interface with the public and hear what their needs are in terms of transit. And then this year, there was the Mckinleyville transit study that was adopted or accepted in June. And this study worked with Montana State University researchers to really study if there was sufficient demand to support a transit system within Mckinleyville. And the conclusion was that there is likely not sufficient density and other population characteristics that would support a standalone system in Mckinleyville, but that, looking at micro-mobility options would be a good choice, and also had good recommendations about increasing the availability of transit from the core of Mckinleyville outside to Arcata and Eureka. So I think good recommendations came out of that, and it was a valuable study to have on the books. Then there was the strategic plan. This was all done in-house, so this is completely an HCOG product, and we're really happy that we were able to get this strategic plan done. It looks at, which call boxes will be decommissioned and, or moved because they've not been used in a number of years. It also looks at expanding our call box system into areas that don't currently have call boxes, and we've looked at doing satellite call boxes, so even in areas with no cell reception. We've had a lot of interest in this. A group from along Highway 36 has been really vocal about wanting increased call boxes, and also up in the Orleans area. And I will say, given the winter conditions this last winter, when not only was Orleans out of power, but they lost their phone line, if we would have had these call boxes, it could have been a lifeline for that community. And so I'm a little bit sad we didn't have the opportunity to move faster, but also, unfortunately know that there will be more disasters in our future, and really feel motivated to get the call boxes in there, because it would have been a way for them to call out, and when they didn't have one this last winter. So definitely looking forward. We've got our encroachment permits going for that, and as soon as the weather's appropriate, we will be working on getting the new call boxes installed. We also completed the bike map application. This is a computer application that works a lot like GIS, so you can kind of zoom in anywhere in the county and see what bike facilities are available. And we had some outside help with this. The QR code's there, and I can send it out to anybody. It's a real easy way to just scan that in, and you can go right to the application. It's pretty cool, and you can play with it. But we're happy to have that available. And then taking a turn from the plans that have been adopted, I think, collaboration is really at the heart of what HCOG works on every day and what our staffers are working on every day. And this was in your write-up as well. But, we're just on this wide range of committees, that we participate in. In some cases, we're providing administrative support for, and it ranges from everything from, trails, the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund Committee, which we provide all the administrative support for, to different climate initiatives that staff sit on task forces for. We were very happy to participate in the Traffic Safety Task Force, the Go Slow, Watch the Road campaign. So we continue to, be involved at those levels. We continue to help our partner agencies such as, Humboldt Transit Authority, do grant writing, things like that. We really want to create and maintain this culture here that we are here to help. And, any way that we can jump in and see, safety projects, other projects that really, have a nexus with our goals and objectives, we want to make sure we're able and have capacity to support those. So the other thing we've been working on is the Regional Early Action Planning Grant. This is the REAP grant, and this is housing related, which is a little bit different from everything else we do. Una has been convening all of the regional planners, or a planner from every jurisdiction, every month to discuss housing related concerns, how we're going to be using this funding. We will be funding the countywide regional climate action plan. The environmental review for that will come out of this REAP funding, along with region-wide VMT thresholds that regions or jurisdictions can rely on, which will help with the CEQA analysis for all projects, including housing projects that move forward in our region. And we also have money in that grant for education and outreach, which we will be launching on in earnest in this next year. And we continue to look for opportunities and appropriate ways for HCOG to be involved in housing and that nexus between housing and transportation. So we, anticipate having expanded roles in that moving forward. And then we have all these fiduciary duties that involve a lot of money that flows through HCOG. And, those sources were provided in the write-up, but, basically in 2021, nearly $9 million flowed through HCOG, and primarily it went to transit. And this goes, what do they do with it? They get to, it augments their operating expenses. We have a lot of it going towards the purchase of new buses, primarily zero emission buses. And it can help with improving bus stops and safety improvements on the buses. It can help with reduced fare promotions. So it goes to a lot of different aspects, maintaining the fleets. So it's really vital for our transit agencies to receive this funding. And then a smaller portion of what flows through us goes straight to local streets and roads. So this is in addition to that STIP funding that we talked about initially with the 5.8 million. But this is projects that through formula or through a call for projects can go to the different jurisdictions. And these pictures are actually from Redwood Way in Fortuna. They received money that's set aside specifically for bike and pedestrian projects, and they were able to add that to a road project they were working on and add those types of facilities. And then we did a number of community activities, pandemic safe community activities. We still hosted Bike Month and had outreach for that. We do the Love to Ride website that goes with Bike Month. And then I was able to do a number of presentations to civic groups. And I will say I am still very interested in giving more presentations to civic groups. So if you have, the Chamber of Commerce in your community, Rotary clubs, Kiwanis, I don't know who wants to hear about HCOG, but we have, sort of a version that we will tailor to that, if depending on what town you're in or what area you're in, we'll talk about projects that are really relevant to that area that HCOG's been involved with. But we would love to just, continue to help educate the broader community about what HCOG does. And happy to have had a chance to do some of that this year. Then the pop-ups that we did during the RTP process were just super fun and great to hear from our community. HCOG is active on Facebook. So if you are active on Facebook and you're not friends with HCOG, please friend us. We don't have a lot of friends yet. And we're looking to get more and more because we do, we're not over posters or oversharers, but we do post really relevant information, that our partner agencies are working on and things that HCOG is hosting as well. So, clue in if you haven't, we'd be happy to have you there. And then we did do, staff development this year. And one of those is bringing on Stevie Luther as our Associate Regional Planner. He was hired this year and has been a great asset. Also, Una completed the California Academy for Regional Leaders. This is a CalCog program. It was 8 months long, and she completed that regional leadership training. We did have Stepping Stone Consulting. They're a local consulting firm focused on racial justice on the North Coast. They came into the 2-part equity training series with all of our staff. And then there's also just a lot of hours we spend, in this case, it's all been online learning this year, but, with lots of good opportunities for staff development related to active transportation and best practices with transportation planning. And then we also held an internal strategic planning session this year to help us look at our priorities, especially anticipating the adoption of the regional transportation plan, looking at all of the different projects that we've laid out and the different priorities we've looked at, we've spelled out in there, really needing to kind of hone in on, okay, how are we going to tackle this and what's most important to do first? We are a staff of just, 4 people. So we have to keep that in mind and use our resources wisely. But I think, through that strategic planning session, some things really rose to the top and, really focusing on those HCOG projects that are in the RTP. And so our core focus areas for 2022 really line up with the same core focus areas in the RTP, focusing on climate change, housing and vibrant neighborhoods and those land use connections, safety and health related to transportation, and equity. And with that, really focus on relationship building in our community and making sure we have everyone at the table that needs to be. So those will be our core areas of focus, and that you will see really as this next overall work program comes forward in the next couple months. You'll really see this kind of highlighted in that work program and how we're putting budgets behind these tasks and making sure that we're able to focus on them. So that really concludes my presentation. We are looking forward to a very productive 2022. So with that, I will stop sharing and happy to take any questions.
I don't have a question, but congratulations on a really successful year. You guys accomplished a lot, especially in your first year. So I'm sure you're all very proud.
Yeah, thanks.
That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
It's been a very busy year.
That was really good. In fact, you mentioned that it could be almost a brochure, and is there any plans or thoughts of putting this into a brochure type format? And are there funds for some distribution of it if necessary when you need to distribute some of the information that we do?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I hadn't really taken it that far, mainly because my personal graphic design skills are very limited. But we will certainly think about that. I think moving forward we'll have a lot more to share as well. So that's great if people are interested. And it works well because it doesn't. We'll get it tidied up and looking really sharp. But everything we can just distribute like with the PDF now. So we don't. We can print up a few beautiful glossy ones, but we don't need to print a whole lot to make it reach really far. So I will take that to heart and tidy it up and widely distribute.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's awesome. And it does showcase the work that was accomplished. And if we have more public workshops, we could have a few of those sitting out for people to realize what exactly happens. And moving down the agenda, the next item is by motion, we will reconvene as the HCOG board and approve the PAC recommendations. So I'll entertain a motion for that.
I so move.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Avis,
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
PAC member Allstrand.
Yes.
Okay, and Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And thank you. And with this, we come to the election of officers and appointment of a California Association CalCog member, delegate. And I'm not sure if Beth is going to. No.
This might be yours, Chair Johnson. Yeah, I think, that we open nominations for a chair, vice chair, and then we would ask for a third executive committee member, helpful in, conducting evaluations and any other, confidential matters that come forward. And then the CalCog delegate. And I believe Supervisor Bass has been our CalCog delegate. So
they have a new executive director, so I finally heard about one of the first meetings and now I'm leaving, so yeah, I can't tell you much about it this year. I wish the next person luck.
Okay, well, with that, we will open the nominations for the officers, I guess, starting with chair. Is there anyone for nomination?
I make a motion that we reappoint Mike Johnson as chair.
I second that.
That's my last official move.
Thank you for your confidence. And I guess we will have a vote on this individually as we go. Or we have the option of readopting we can't adopt the entire slate because one of our people are leaving, Supervisor Bass.
Yes.
So with that, we will vote on the nomination for chair.
You can vote on all of them at once instead of doing,
Well,
so you
that
can
would,
make all the nominations and then we can do a final vote.
that's a good idea. Thank you. We have open nominations for vice chair, and I would nominate Mayor Seaman.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, we have a vice chair. We need a third person for the executive committee. This person is not quite as busy as the chair or vice chair could be, but there are important things that need action quickly, and that's when that person would be called upon. I don't know if we have a nomination for vice chair, executive committee. Perhaps
I would nominate Stacy.
That's what I was thinking also.
Adkins Salazar, Mayor Adkins Salazar, I suppose. I'm really bad about being too casual.
I would second that. And
we have a slate.
well, do we want to do the CalCog delegate at the same time, make one vote? So do we have a nomination for our CalCog delegate? I know somebody who has been the CalCog delegate before that is not a county supervisor.
I was going to ask Councilmember Avis if he was interested in that again. That was you, right?
It was. And with the endorsement of Officer or Supervisor Bass for the good luck, I would accept the nomination.
I think you'll have more meetings and know more people than I got to do, but.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little different world. With that, we will take a vote, roll call vote for our slate of delegates.
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Avis,
Aye.
Mayor Adkins Salazar,
Thank you for the nomination, and aye.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jack West,
Yes.
and Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And thank you all for your work on the board. I appreciate that, and for your confidence in me for another year. And I look forward to a lot of accomplishments, and I can't wait to see Beth's list at the beginning of next year. So thank you. And with that, we come to PAC member reports, first being the HCOG Executive Director's Report.
Right. Well, I will keep this short since I've already talked a lot tonight, but I just wanted to mention that next month at our board meeting, Susan Renaz, who was a former council member of Arcata, will be coming to speak with us. She's been on a road charge committee, a statewide committee to explore road charge, which would be a method of replacing the gas tax. So as we convert to electric vehicles, the gas tax is becoming, less lucrative, and this committee explores basically the replacement for the gas tax or looking at a road charge system and all the different facets of that, from like technology issues to equity issues, and really making recommendations to the state. So I just wanted to put a bug in everyone's ear about that and to be thinking if that sounds interesting to you. She will come next month and present a little more information about it, and then we will be looking for a recommendation. She just resigned from this committee, and so we were looking for a recommendation for a replacement. So we will forward that recommendation on. So that will be a voting matter for next month. But just, if you get excited about road charge in the meantime, feel free to do some research. But that's a little preview. Also next week is the STIP North hearing for the California Transportation Commission. So I will be, I thought it was going to be my first travel opportunity for HCOG, but COVID plans changed things in Sacramento. So I will be virtually participating, but giving a presentation on behalf of our region and telling all of the regions of the North how great our projects are. So we're looking forward to that. And then finally, just, very mixed emotions saying farewell to Supervisor Bass. I want to thank you for being, with HCOG. Certainly I was so delighted to get to work, work with you this last year. And, really it's been my whole career that you have been someone I've had to look up to. And I just appreciate your public service. And something I've always really admired is you always took the time to get the whole story. I feel that's
don't want everybody to know the whole stories, but yeah.
That's how it always seemed to be, and in the different roles I've had over the years, and I just so appreciated that always, and just like I said, just had you to look up to my whole career. So thank you, and it's been a real pleasure, and I hope all the best for you. I know we'll still have 11 months, but you won't be here. Yeah, I'm sure you're not going to attend these meetings for fun in the meantime, but just thank you for everything.
I'm going to need a new pastime. Maybe I'll start hanging out at meetings.
So yeah, thank you very very much appreciated.
Thank you for that. And we come now to Caltrans reports from PAC member Allstrand, I'm guessing.
Yeah, quick update on the Indianola undercrossing. Jeff Pimentel, project manager, will be here next month to give a more detailed update, but he let me know that the project team continues to develop the updated plans to re-advertise the project, and the target date for that is April 1st of this year. And then there'll be a re-advertisement soon after that.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I've been through the Last Chance Grade project recently, on once in my pickup and once on a motorcycle. I have to say the motorcycle ride was more exciting, but it's passable and it's open. It might be a slight delay, but it's much better than it was. So thank you guys for that. Anybody have a question or comment for PAC member Allstrand before we adjourn to closed session?
Yes, Chair Johnson, this is Gordon Johnson. My question is, if I remember correctly, the CTC had to obligate the money for Indianola before the end of this current fiscal year. Is that still a possibility?
I don't know the answer to that. Beth, do you know? Yeah.
Yeah, so my understanding in talking with Jeff, the project manager, was that they asked for an extension. They had one extension remaining, so that they did ask for the extension on time. So they'll have another, I believe it's another 6 months to obligate, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, because it sounds like the timeline has slipped a couple months, because they were going to advertise in February and now it's moved out to April. And so,
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Nope. Well, in that case, we will adjourn to closed session with the topic being the Executive Director 1-year performance evaluation.
Okay, so if we can just have everybody who's a panelist that is not a board member leave the meeting. Okay, it looks like everybody's gone, and I thought I would be able to leave as well, but I can't because I am hosting this. But I will stop recording and I will mute myself out. So
oh, mercy.